So when I'm about 35, I'm coaching little kids soccer, meaning like 6 and 7 year olds, and a ball indoor, and a ball comes rolling to me really slowly. And I turn around and I just do, just a normal side foot pass back to him. And tears flushed out of my eyes. I was like, I got injured doing that. And I mean, I pulled a groin muscle. And I don't know if there is anything worse. There might be, but it was the worst thing in my life to that point. But that 35 on, man, it just gets worse. And then at my age, I basically have to do yoga to get out of bed.
Yeah, fucking
Stretch.
sneeze got me today.
Oh yeah. You're gonna be just fine. You got about 10 more years before it gets really bad. So enjoy it.
I think considering that I went to bed at like 6 a.m. because I got done with around with all of this nonsense by then.
Yeah.
I basically was trying not to drop my fucking cup of coffee.
Yeah.
That's what did it. If I just normally I would have been fine.
Oh, buddy, I'm sorry. I am sorry to hear that, because that's the beginning of the end when little shit gets you. But wait, hey, I am how many years ahead of you? I'm 25 years ahead of you. And I'm just happy that everything's still working. We'll leave it there. I'm just happy. Do you have all the ED commercials in India like we do over here?
I don't think we do.
You're not there yet. Well, give it 5 years.
It'll show up.
If you're my age, you go, do all these men actually have this problem? Because really, maybe it's just lifestyle. Most healthy men I know, not a problem. But I know it's a legitimate medical thing. Every goddamn commercial, it cannot be that prevalent, and nobody talks about it. Cannot be.
Probably all the fucking poison in the food.
It wouldn't surprise me, right? God, isn't that the truth? But hey, we have cheaper bacon, so why not?
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, I had City Hall last night. Do you want to open with City Hall?
Go ahead, villagers. I don't really care at this point with my back pain.
So I am very open to the community. So I always put stuff out on our local social media pages, and I say, hey, I'll be there at 6:00 for a meeting that's at 6:30. And that way everybody who wants to talk about something can show up early, and it keeps the meeting from being all muffled with a bunch of conversation that really we can't have in that situation. So when you're in city council, school board, anything like that, they usually have this thing that looks like a half circle, and it's called a dais, DIAS. And that's where we sit. And not that we're above everybody out there, but especially as crazy stuff has gotten, you want a barrier between you and the audience, for lack of a better word. But I sit with
just you and pharmacists, the only people who have to talk down to
us. I'll tell you my British pharmacy story someday. It'll make it's good fodder. So this lady comes in, and so we're 3 or 4 feet from each other, and we talk, and this other person. So I get through about 8 or 9 people, and then the meeting's over in an hour since I've spent that time beforehand. So do you have people that are willing to do that extra work to make the meetings run smoother, or shit show? What are your meetings?
Shit show is my guess, or it's done behind so many layers of bureaucracy and red tape that I'm not even aware who makes these decisions. I just read about it once in a way.
God, isn't that? See, that I don't know how I would feel about that, because I just, and I don't need to be part of it, but I do want to know. And I've been involved in one form or another in politics since I was about 5 years old. Is when I first used to put these for the illiterate Irish. We would put everybody in India. This is something to hear, because most of the Irish came to America and couldn't read. They were just off of a farm, 3rd grade education. And so there's this guy that was a lawyer in our neighborhood, for lack of a better word, would put this thing called an Aylward ballot. And he would put all of the people that he'd interviewed that were the best political people for our area. They weren't bringing money and jobs to our area. They didn't make it on his list. And then little kids like me would tape them to your door. And the Irish would take that list with them and vote according to that list. And that's how you take over a country. It really isn't with arms and what people really think.
Mm-hmm.
Revolution is evolution. And that's what that guy proved to me as a kid. You just evolve into this more educated voter base because you see that it works. Now, my concern is with yours, if nobody even knows who's making the decision, how do you get to that point?
I know. I think the size, the population, all of that. I honestly, when you were asking me how does someone start in politics, I wouldn't even know where to begin. I can go visit like a local party office, but that, unless I know someone, unless I'm like fluent in one of the local languages that they give a shit about, I don't think you can even be part of the
process. Mm-hmm. Okay, so for Indians moving to America, this was the easiest thing to get into you've ever imagined. Everybody is always looking for volunteers. And even if your English is sketchy at best, there's something you know that they don't know, and more than likely it has to do with a computer. So I mean, let's if you can figure out which party aligns with you the most, none are going to be 100%. You're always going to hate 30 or 35% of what they sell or what they say they're going to sell, and then they do something else. But if you want to be introduced to Americans, to do business with Americans and everything down the line, you go to your local, not your statewide, but your local Republican, Democrat, or even Libertarian office, and you offer to volunteer. And they will take you. You think they won't take it because they don't know you and all this other bullshit. They will over here. And you're in. So we've got an Indian guy running for president here. You do know that, right? He's a nut job, right winger, but he was a tech entrepreneur. He made a ton of money, phenomenal speaker. Mm-hmm. He is Donald Trump with manners.
What's his name? Why?
Oh God! Are you going to really make me embarrass myself with an Indian name, honestly? It begins with a V. And he's brilliant at marketing. So when the Bud Light saga came up, which nobody gives a shit about, but about 30 people made money making fun of Bud Light. He made his own beer cans with his name on it and stuff. And it was all just fake marketing. Right. So he just had some crew do it for him. This guy's got a future. He's not going to win this time around, but you got to get in there and do your own thing. And he's got enough of his own money to spend to get in front of everybody. Now, unfortunately, he's smart enough not to go as far right as some folks, but he sounds so damn rational, he could get away with it. Yeah. So you need to look him up. But for anybody moving over here, when you go, how do I ever fit into anything? Oh, you've got a talent we need in politics here. Isn't that crazy?
I know.
Yeah, so but it's true. Well, think of politics like a church in America. We have, what do you figure, 300 or 400 different religions here from far left to far right. I mean, we got the marijuana church all the way over to the Lutherans are still alive, you know. But you can choose any political party, but you don't really want to work for a person because you don't get to meet everybody.
Yeah.
If you're doing it for social contacts, you can go and do Toastmasters to learn how to speak better publicly. I mean, that's usually really low cost, but the easiest way in is the political one because they'll let you speak. And most politicians, as you all have seen on television, aren't very good at it for that being their job.
I know. That would be interesting. I don't even think it would be something that would have crossed most people's mind if they're moving from India today.
Okay. Awesome. Give me your experience with the guy who said, I love brown people in Edmond, but they were trying to be really welcoming.
I know.
And just miserably failed, but they were trying.
For the life of me, I couldn't remember what that event was. What was he? It was a Democrat meeting, something?
It was the John Birch Society, which I won't lie to you, I don't even know what the F that means. I really don't. So everybody's got these little societies based on some shit somebody wrote 200 or 175 years ago. Your history is way longer than ours, but you look at it and go, is that relevant today in because we are TV, social media, politics now.
Mm-hmm.
This other stuff, the meat of everything happens. Like we're doing budgets on Wednesday. That's politics.
Mm-hmm.
Who's getting more? I mean, the distribution of, and we'll do $14 or $15 million that day.
Oh wow!
And that's where politics matter. So, where do you want the seat at the table? Do you want to be the guy out there yelling at him, telling him everything you do is wrong, or do you want to be part of the person who decides where all the money goes? And that's in a town of 10,000 people. We've still got that much money to distribute. If you're ethical, it can't go to your buddies and it can't go to you. And that's where things get tricky, especially in bigger cities. Oklahoma City is $1.9 billion budget. That's where the money is.
Yeah. No.
If you want to make some money, city council there. All their city councilors only make $10,000 a year, but yet they all seem to do well.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty much like what we talked about when you're on your way out from a political seat.
Right. That's the most dangerous 2 years right there.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody's grasping for something. So what I would say as a lead-in to anybody moving, I went to 5 different high schools. That's a terrible time to go to a different school each year. And the podheads would welcome me first. Mm-hmm. They were always the most welcoming people. The people you find in detention, the most welcoming people. And you think scholastically from the background you are, which is the British system, anybody from the high-end Indian system, everybody in those systems are somewhat successful. Even if they're the biggest screw up, they're probably gonna do pretty okay. I mean, let's be honest.
I know a couple of dummies who just fell backwards, forward, if that makes sense.
Yes. But what you want to be in is in a small room with people that you get to know. Mm-hmm. The thing is, you don't have to invite them over to your house, but when you see them in public, you want them to acknowledge you and you acknowledge them in a funny, boisterous way. Yeah. Not the I won't look you in the eye nod. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, detention man, hurry. And it really does, because if you're with your colleagues, if you were with your Indian colleagues here, mm-hmm. and you saw some guy that you knew from some political event, you'd say hi to him. Now, the question is, do you introduce him to your friends or not? But all of your friends noticed that some guy they don't know knew you.
Yeah. That's the
or
thing.
some lady. Right.
I don't know, because it depends on who I was talking to.
Right. Yeah.
Like some of them are just fucking idiots, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to waste my time introducing you, because you're going to go back to the little clique that you hang out at anyway. You're never going to, again, acknowledge this person if I'm not there.
Right. Mm-hmm. But you are socially acclimated enough to make that decision. Yeah. But if you're new to a place, you just give it, thumbs up, mm-hmm. a point, hey, one of those, and go back to your friends. Until you're comfortable enough with it. God knows what somebody's going to say.
So, like the Browns, I see Brown teams assembled is what they'll tell me if they see me with a bunch of people.
For those of you listening in, especially if you're in India, I apologize for what happened at the meeting in Edmond. Deepak went with us, and literally the guy doing it, and he is one of the nicest people. He's just socially awkward. Maybe on the spectrum, maybe. Mm-hmm. And he literally looks at Deepak and goes, "We love brown people here." And I don't even, all of us looked at each other like, did that really just happen? I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or apologize. I mean, it was so weird.
I was so confused. I just nodded and smiled.
You should have farted on your way out. That would have been the appropriate exit in that situation. But did they not try to keep engaging you?
Oh yeah, they did.
Right. And so that's the thing that I would say to everybody else. They don't, a lot of people that come from your home country are not going to have your accent. They'll have a little more the one that we're used to from India. Look, I'm telling you, that's your easiest way in over here. You're obviously coming over here to make money, whatever you're coming into. What is the dream? It's like my dad's dream when he came to America is he just wanted to have a car and a house. That was it. I mean, it wasn't any further than that.
See, I'm like a weird outlier when it comes to these things, but I guess like everybody I know they're already married and have children because that's what their parents and family told them to do. So when they move there, some of them, the goal is to settle down there and get a green card, which would be ideal.
Right. Right.
Or the other scope of it would be to just do well enough where you're sending enough money to buy a lot of shit here.
Right. Yeah. That's the Mexican way to do it. They're sending their money home. So what we ran into in Ireland is back then you could only send cash or coin. The mail people were stealing it. Some of it didn't even make it back to your family. You know, they'd disguise it in a letter or anything. But you know, those guys knew when you only wrote once every 2 months, there was money in there. So they just opened it up. Yeah. Doesn't that suck?
I swear.
Yeah. And then these people were starving, you know, and that was their, you know, they put up enough money to get the one person to go over to America so they could send stuff home, which is, I don't, you guys probably don't see the news with our border crisis, which didn't turn out to be much of a crisis. We desperately need workers.
Caravan coming.
Yeah, but so here's the funny thing. We need workers in America. We desperately need workers. We're at 3.5% unemployment. There's nobody to hire. So I don't understand why the door isn't further open. I mean, I literally don't understand it. And I know the vote goes to these white people that think all these folks want their jobs. But, you know, right now in Florida, have we talked about Florida at all or no?
No, we have not.
Okay. So Governor DeSantis is the guy's name. He believes he's the next Donald Trump with a little bit of manners, but he doesn't really have any. And so he's running for president.
Pudding for anyone listening.
What?
Pudding with his fingers. That's as far as
he does. Yeah, he's got a horse laugh, like kind of laugh. But his wife is gorgeous, and she dresses like Jackie O. That she could win in the election. Yeah, I mean in that deal. So he has now made it a basically a criminal felony for illegals to be working in Florida. Which, if you know anything about Florida, that's who built the whole place. And before that, it was slaves that built the whole place. I mean, it has been immigrant slave labor from day one. And now you've got all these retirees from New York and all this other stuff. So all the immigrants have stopped working. And I don't know if they've left, but like they're huge $100 million complexes that aren't being finished. Literally no roofs. And, you know, first rain they have with all that wood out, all this shit's just ruined. It'll blister. And so for him to have this presidential run, he is willing to sell everybody out on this deal and just not acknowledge the fact that America has succeeded on the next generation of immigrants over and over and over and over and over. You guys are just the latest wave.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when I was in the 80s, it was Iranians, Iraq, I mean, a whole bunch from that area of the Mideast. And then, you know, the Americans turn on them. So some other countries' people are allowed in. And in my hometown, there's a bunch of Somalis there, which is kind of unusual. You know, you get around this medical center, it's a whole bunch of Muslim Somalis. And who would have thought?
Pretty random.
But but if one of them's a doctor and they get to bring over 10 family members, hell, we'll take all 10, man. They're going to be smart. You got a doctor as your lead. Yeah. I mean, I hate to say it. Let's get the tax revenue off of all 10. But the whole country has been built on that. And so my dad's deal in America, a house and a car. And he, you know, married my mom, thank God, who was well educated. And her thing was everybody gets a college degree. And, you know, and she was the one who understood politically how to work things. And she would be the one who would say to you, especially with your British ass accent, you would be perfect in American politics. You present well. Isn't that crazy? And then she would scold you for tattoos.
Oh, yeah. I am pretty sure I'd get yelled at. I'm pretty sure my mom still yells at me about it when I pass by. I'm like, I've been seeing it for 10 years now.
And that's all you can say. But so I think really and truly for us to throw that out there and especially if they came to this area, I'd be the first one to introduce them in. And they don't have to get into the ugly side of politics. They're just there to make connections and friends. Yeah. I'm in the ugly side of politics. I have people literally threatening to kill me, showing up to my house, all this bullshit. But that's because I actually want to I'm trying to get stuff done that is ugly. And so they're there are people that could go to jail over it, and they don't want to go to jail. So, but you don't have to be involved in that part,
Yep.
Especially somebody with your background skills. You think of if you decided to do it, you could at least get a city council position within being here for 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure.
You'd go to everybody's doors and they'd be like, God, he sounds like an asshole, like he's from England. He must be smart. Isn't it? They'll cut you down and then go, well, it must be smart.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. So we had our first person of color, Black female, on our city council ever in the history of our town, which is embarrassing. But
Really?
hey, I'm not responsible for it. Yeah, I've only been here 20 years. Smart as a whip. She's a finance lady. And it was her second city council meeting last night. And she seems to have fit in just fine, was debating with everybody and on every topic. And yeah, it was nice.
The one thing that you'll never hear is like software engineers or doctors talking about immigrants coming and taking their jobs.
No, ever. Exactly.
It's usually the asshole who you can teach him the job by a mime.
Well, and the thing is over here, you look at it and go, hey, my dad, he literally, Irish people working for the railroad. The Irish and the Chinese built the railroads in America. My dad worked for the railroad, and then he got in.
America's infrastructure is basically built by throwing Chinese and Irish folks.
That's it. That is absolutely correct. And the only reason the Italians weren't doing it is they already knew how to extract coal. So they were working in the coal mines. I mean, if you look at where you came from, what do you know how to do? You come over here and you're probably over there doing it at 10 or 12 years old. So by the time you get here at 14 or 15, you make an adult's wage.
Yeah.
So the next question is what do they get their children to do? That's you guys understand, much like the Irish, education is the only way out of poverty.
Yep.
It's the only way. Long term, you got to have a seat at the goddamn table or you're going to be eating for dinner. So you got to either take it, steal it, or kill somebody to have it.
Do you know certain people find it like really weird that if they're speaking to me in a local language, but they're like kids who are like 10 years younger than me. So I usually ask them to switch to English, not because I understand it better. It would help them speaking English
practice
often. Yeah.
Especially your version.
Mm-hmm. Where I would actually correct them when they're talking to me. But idiots don't seem to realize it. They're constantly talking in like one of the local languages. And I'm like, dude, I'm not doing it to be a dick to you. In the world,
I just sound like a dick. I'm not being a dick.
That's the worst part about this fucking accent. Even if I look at somebody and tell them, sorry, I'm not being a dick, all they hear is, yes, I'm being a dick.
That's awesome. But maybe if you were white British, they would think it was somebody to practice with. That might be an inherent deal where they go, well, he's like us. We just need one of those other, because I go to other countries and I'm really friendly and I talk to everybody. And they're like, well, will you correct me on this? And I go, if it's wrong, I will. But how about we just get through some shit?
The other day I was talking to my bartender, and that guy, he understands English, but he'll usually reply to me in like one of the local languages. And sometimes even I would ask him something in the local language, but he basically helps me kind of learn that language again, how to speak.
Again, right.
Which is kind of cool. But I was talking to him and I was like, why don't you ever speak to me in English? Probably it'll help you with moving up from being a bartender to a bar manager or whatever. He's like, sir, I don't have a 10 standard degree, so I will never move from this position. I will just stay here for the rest of my life. And the weird part was, I think they get paid somewhere around $200 to $300 a month. That's what they make.
Jesus.
And he's married, has 2 children. They go to school somewhere, but they come from like a rural part of like just outside the main city. But right now the city is expanding, so all their old farms are now worth millions. But they
good for them.
His family, the coolest thing about his family, I told him I'll come and see him for the sole reason that they have a mulberry farm. Okay,
nice.
They're mulberry trees, and it is basically for feeding their silkworms.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so they
Really?
actually create the raw material. So all they do is extract the cocoons and sell that
Yeah.
when it's processed into silk.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow. God, how weird. Well,
Mhm.
now he's going to be land rich, so he'll be fine.
Yeah.
I don't understand the inability to move up. So, if anybody from India came to America, my thing I would tell them is, man, own your own place.
Yeah.
You want to move up and solve the glass ceiling problem or the prejudice problem, own your own thing. Because over here, it's online. You literally fill everything out online. There's no clerk to tell you no. There's no clerk to treat you badly.
Mhm.
And if you need help with it, you can go to a city or a state and ask for help.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, they might be condescending shits to you, but they'll still have to teach you how to do it.
Mhm.
And if you're going to work 16 hours a day, why not do it for yourself?
Fuck yeah.
I mean, literally do it for yourself. So it's an interesting ordeal. We're 20 years into living with my dad. I started to notice the game, which is he didn't read very well. And so whenever it came to anything like that, my mom would always say, let me have a look at that. And then she would decipher it all because he could do anything once he could get through that part.
Mhm.
It wasn't for lack of talent. Really, what he needed to do is go back and learn how to read again because whatever he learned in second grade or first grade just didn't work.
Mhm.
And part of that immigrant experience there is being too proud.
Yeah. See, that is the one thing that other Indians who come there would have to learn.
Right.
Their dignity of labor. They don't get to. There's nothing wrong with doing any job, and you don't get to treat the fucking as your maid at home type shit.
Yeah.
What I know,
you won't have any staff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would be interesting to. Because I usually meet people that have been here 5 years, or you're probably the earliest, but so you didn't really count. But it's you get. I think that would be the other adjustment is your guys' weird status system means nothing over here, and I mean nothing. No one cares. They literally don't care. And how do you go from that being the only thing to it literally no? But the good thing is, if you weren't in the higher end of that, nobody cares either.
Mm-hmm. That is true.
And that one works out. But anyway, politically, man, that's the thing that I would tell everybody to start in.
Yeah.
And I think we talked one other time about just getting a social, either having a neighborhood place to go to, and you don't even have to drink. It's not required to drink to be social.
Yeah.
And I think those two things get you set up fairly well. So most people that come over, jobs in advance or no jobs in advance. What is how does that work?
See, most of the people who would have showed up on like the work visa I used to have, that would be
already had a job.
Already have a job.
Yeah.
It is very, I mean, I won't even, just because of like my education level, I wouldn't even be allowed to apply for any of those other visas that are for people coming there to do some sort of manual or agricultural work.
Right.
When I go for that visa interview here, the US embassy would basically tell me, fuck off, you have an MBA, get the fuck out of here. This is not the visa for you.
Right. I'm just trying to get in, man. I'm just trying to get in. Yeah.
That was a weird part when we were doing the paperwork a couple of months ago for it's called an EB1, which is kind of a green card fast track system where the company sponsors your visa. And India has like a wait list of almost 10 years or something, Sean.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
They're still processing families that applied for their visas in the early 90s is what you met my immigration attorney. He was telling me last week. Yeah. He was like, dude, I'm still processing things from like 97, 2000 at times.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Now that's just crazy to me. You think of the tax revenue we're missing out on. I look at it a totally different way. State tax revenue is 5% of your income, sales tax, 8.5% to 9% of your income, regular wage tax, 25%. Mm-hmm. I mean, that is a crazy amount of money to be missing out on. Crazy.
People we hire every now and then to do coding and shit, all of that just counts towards what we add to the economy in general, right?
Right. Yeah. That's nuts, man. That is nuts. It would be nice if that could be figured out, but it's such a political hot potato with the less educated Americans.
That
And they
that actually shows you how long back this system has been in a bottleneck and just fucking dragging its ass around.
Yeah.
Like, if you're processing shit from the early 90s, just think about how much it hasn't been addressed and how much it gets polarized every time you try to talk about it.
Well, and much more so ever since the Trump era.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how that changes until his followers either calm down or die off. And so we have a well, 4 million people die per year, and I mean, from old age, and you go, that's a lot of voters.
That's a lot of Fox viewers.
Right. We'll just leave it there. Long term, it does not work out. The play is all short term. That's the big thing. The play is all short term. Wow. Nuts.
We were going to talk about tall poppy.
Yeah. Oh my God, I forgot about that. Okay.
Tall poppy.
Okay. So you have to tell me how it works for your people, and I'll tell you how it works for my people. So tall poppy is an Australian term. And so it was an Irish and English and Scottish penal colony and Welsh. So whenever England was throwing somebody in jail, instead of putting them in jail, they would sail a ship over to Australia and drop you off in shark-infested waters, and you would have to swim to land. And if you look at Australian football, it explains some of the history, because it's just crazy people killing each other on a field with a ball. And because they learned it in the shark-infested waters. But they've made a really nice country out of this prison colony. And so it can happen. And they don't let felons in. Did you know that? The irony that it was a prison colony, but if you have a felony, they will not let you in Australia. Did you know that?
I have family there. I didn't know that they don't let...
no felons.
That is the most unironic thing I've ever heard of.
Right. They're like, fuck it. We've already had these problems. We don't want any more of those guys. So what happens in Australia, and so Irish people want you to do well, just not better than them. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So tall poppy is when somebody starts to do better and gets a little ego and a little attitude. They'll look around and go, well, that's a little tall poppy there. And then societally, they cut that person back down to the same size as everybody else. It's also called the crab principle, that I'm not going to bore everybody with multiple terms, but tall poppy. So they just bring you down. But there's something to that. Then you never challenge the status quo politically, economically, or anything else. And it's self-policed, which is really weird. The government doesn't even need to be involved. The people do it to themselves. So when I was young, I still remember a lady, and her name was Mrs. Lillis, and she made some comment to me. She goes, well, you guys act like you're lace curtain Irish, which meant we acted like we were better.
Posh Irish, I guess.
Right. Posh. Yeah, lace curtain, because evidently, that was a sign of wealth. And at the time, I was deeply insulted by it, because I didn't know what it meant. I just knew the way she said it. It was shitty.
Tomorrow when you call me, I'm going to slowly angle the camera there and have some lace hanging from that.
Lace curtain.
Just to be a small, petty human being able to do this.
There you go. But so how does that work with you guys societally? Do you police yourselves as far as that ego goes? Or are you just proud that somebody made it out? Because we still suffer from it.
I think from smaller, close-knit communities, you suffer from that.
Yeah.
The problem is that this city is big enough where I barely know anybody out on the street.
Right. Wow. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It almost, I don't know whether it's kind of something that I've done after staying in America for so long, where I rarely ever spoke to any of the neighbors, whether I still have that attitude here, or I don't know whether it's become that way because we are all from like different places now. It's not the old neighborhood where all of us grew up on the street type shit.
Right. Yeah. So if I went back to my hometown, I would know everybody almost. Still, it's become a larger city, But that part of the city hasn't changed that much because everybody was fairly well educated, and God, if you could inherit one of those homes, it's $500,000, $750,000. When we were kids, there was 12 people living in there, so it wasn't worth shit.
The old neighborhood, Frasertown, there I'd probably know like a lot of people because our ancestral house is still there, right? And all of that crap. But here it's a new neighborhood. We moved here only in June, so I hardly know too many and stuff. Like the only weird thing they know about me is that I sound different. And in the night they see me feed like the 5 stray dogs that live on my street.
Right. You actually feed them.
Yeah, I do, because they're just running around and I've seen them since they were like little pups when I moved here. So now they're like adult little idiots that follow me around.
Right. So does that carry to over here? Because most Indians seem to know each other in my hometown and here.
I noticed the class system when I'm at the temple.
Oh, wow. Really?
You will notice their attitudes are different if I see them at the temple as opposed to anywhere else.
Wow.
So there they pretend like, oh, I'm from the priest caste. Oh, I'm from this class. So it's like that shitty thing I notice at times. And really weird.
So that would make you want to go there, wouldn't it?
Like speaking of tall poppy, don't you think that is like Rupert Murdoch's overall philosophy on celebrity and politics?
The key there is you have to build them up, then take them down. That way you make money both ways. So he really is a turd. But I also understand where he comes from, where he's like, yeah, fuck these people. They're not that special. Let me show you how not special they really are. And he's collecting a file for year after year after year. And then they do something that makes him mad. And he's just a vindictive Australian.
Yep. There's this beautiful thing done on how the Daily Mail, which I think is his paper, covered Princess Diana, where they portrayed her as the virgin, they portrayed her as the princess, they portrayed her as the whore. And it was that weird little cycle of fuckery that he was doing all the time.
Yeah. Well, so there does come a time when you don't get to be the Wonder Boy anymore because it doesn't sell papers. Yeah. The upshot of, oh my God, look, this person's doing good things. Sooner or later, they're all waiting for one person to pounce on you, then they all pounce. So, and that would be me. And this, I'm 60. I've only got a few more years at this shit. And so they'll be turning on me pretty soon, is my guess. And I don't care. I mean, fortunately, at my age, I can go, I don't give a shit.